Hey guys, I wanted to come to you and show you how to do a carrot from start to finish. So the very first thing I'm going to do is grab my mop brush, which is what I always use whenever I'm doing any of my base coating. And we're going to use our orange and just get a good coat down here on the bottom. Now, you're going to want to go ahead and do your sides. I always do my sides first. And that is so that, first off, whenever I'm doing my sides, you're going to see a lip of paint over here on the top. But you also want to seal your sides. So you don't want any wood showing, any exposed wood. So my sides are the first thing. And then I'm going to just finish it out right here on the top. Now, you can see that this paint that I'm using right now is really thin. That's because I literally took every paint bottle that I have to the store yesterday when we were packaging up those 2-ounce cups. So I was scrambling around in my shop to find some materials to be able to use. And the one that I had, as you can see, that's a little runny, I had watered it down to use it for something else. So this looks very thin. However, all the paint that you guys have that we sell at the stores, it's going to be a lot thicker than this. So your first thing is to start with one coat of each color. Now, every time that you're doing this, you're actually going to do this twice. So you do your first coat of your colors, and then once it dries, you're going to come back and repeat this step again. Same exact thing. You don't always have to do your corners every time, but as long as you cannot see through your paint, then you're good. If you can still kind of see your wood through there, then you do want to make sure that you're doing 2 coats. So I'm just kind of grabbing up, using my paint to get the sides, and I'm going to touch all the way back to where I did that orange paint. You don't want to see any exposed wood. You always want to make sure too that you use enough paint. I've had a lot of people work for me over the years, and that was always one thing that seemed to be something more difficult for some people. So you want it to be thick, but without leaving big, huge, clumps on there. So that's step 1. You'll repeat this step exactly twice. By the time you get done base coating, you should not be able to see the wood through. If you can still see the wood, that's okay. Just put an extra coat of paint on there. All right, guys, so after you've done your 2 coats and they've both dried and your piece looks good and you cannot see through the wood, now it's time to move on to your next step, which is shading. I use, I couldn't even tell you the brand, if you could tell. It's all rubbed off. But you're going to find you a good square tip brush if you'd like to learn how to shade. All of my brushes I've had forever, so I can't even tell you what the brand is, but you can get these at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, any kind of craft store. So when I'm shading something, I always go and I do the lightest color first. The reason I do that is because I use the same exact brush for both colors. So I like to use the lighter color first, so that way if there's any remnants of that color still in my brush after I wash it, that dark color that I do next won't show it. So I'm going to start with orange. This is shading orange. And typically I add water to this. It really just depends on how it looks on the piece. If my brush isn't gliding enough, then I take a squirt bottle of water and I squirt a little bit in there and I mix it up and then try it again. So right now I'm gonna just use it as it is and let's see if I like it. So actually I just dipped that incorrectly. You really wanna go on the corner and you're gonna load your paint on the corner of that brush. Now, whenever I'm doing this, I always start on one side and you're kind of just gonna follow along your ripples. Now, on this particular pattern, I always take mine and kind of do it over like that to give me more of that depth of, you know, a carrot. And so on this side, I'd always do my first one over and then I skip this one and I do the last one. And that way when I come on this side, I'm gonna skip this one because I have it on the opposite side. Keep bringing my brush down and I'm gonna bring it across like that. This is looking okay to me. That's why you didn't see me stop and add water. But if you are having an issue with your brush and you don't like the way it's looking, try to add a little bit of water and see if that helps. So now after I've outlined my edges, I always come in and do some wispy kind of lines. There's no real right or wrong. It's kind of just random, honestly. So that's all I'm gonna do on my orange shading. So I'm gonna put my lid back on, make sure that I'm keeping my paint sealed, that way it doesn't dry out. I'm gonna wash out my brush just a little bit. Typically I always wash my brush under the sink water, but since I'm over here trying to paint and I'm not next to my sink, I'm just using a bucket of water. So we'll see how clean that really is here in a minute. So now I'm going to repeat the same process, but with the top. So we have a dark green. If you don't happen to have this dark green, you can take your regular green and you can take some black and you can mix this color. We used to mix this color years ago, but it gets old mixing colors over and over and over, so we ended up getting the exact color matched and we just have it made now. Excuse me, let me let my crazy dogs out right quick. Sorry about that, guys. Real life here. I'm a dog mom. All right, same thing. I'm gonna take my shader brush. I'm gonna load the corner. Load the corner. You want to make sure you have enough paint on there because that's what's gonna keep you gliding around your piece. The more times that you lift your hand up on your strokes, the more choppy it's gonna look. So you want to be as fluid and continuous with your strokes as possible. So loaded my corner. I'm gonna start it with my loaded side against the edge. And I'm gonna just follow along. Now you can see mine's watered down. Like I said, I left all of my paint at the store earlier. So I had no way of refilling this without watered down paint. So that's okay though. It'll dry and it'll look just fine. I'm gonna put my lid back on this because that paint that I still have left in here is the paint that I'm gonna use to kind of just do a couple little swishes and give it some dimension to it. Now, as far as the shading goes, that's it. I'm done. I could put my brush up and I'm not gonna use it again. I have to set this outside so that it can dry. That way I can show you the outline step. So I'll check back in a minute. Alrighty guys, welcome back. I stuck this outside for about 5-10 minutes and it's dry enough that I could go ahead and finish it out now. So when I'm doing my carrot, I don't put black outline on the bottom because it makes it just look too dark and it just doesn't look good to me. So we actually use a color, it's more like a red orange. This is the color that we use. I don't know if you could, hopefully y'all could see it. It's a red orange color. Now, if you don't have this, if you didn't get this color from the store, even if you're just using your own paint, you can mix this. So if you have the shading orange, you can take some of this. Here, you can take some of this and you can mix it with red, and you can create the same color that you see right here. So, like I said earlier, I don't have all of my bottles of paint. They're all at the store. So I have to use what I have on hand. And I only have some red right here in a little cup, excuse me. So I'm gonna use some of this to add it to my orange until I kind of get that color consistency that I'm wanting. So mix, 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 mix. All right, I need some more red. Now, we just use exterior house paint. So you can go to Ace, Lowe's, Home Depot, any of those places and get some paint. If you live too far, you're not close to the store to be able to come and get ours, no worries. Go to any of your local hardware stores, and the same paint that you use on your house is the exact same paint that we use on our pieces. Just make sure that you get exterior. So it's not exact, but it's close enough. So if you have ours, that's great. If not, you can make your own. Use your dark orange and some red. So now, whenever you're doing outlining, we use a brush called a script liner. This is a brush by Royal. Oops, excuse me. A brush by Royal, and this is a number 4. This is what they look like brand new. As you can see, here's mine. You literally use this every single day. Every single piece that I've probably painted in the last 6 months, I've used this brush. I like to break in my brushes and then basically refuse to use any other brushes. So I use it and I use it and I use it until it's dead and all my bristles are falling apart and it no longer looks good, and then I throw it away and I train a new brush. But I like to break one brush in and just use it until I can't use it anymore. So, all right, so now I'm ready to do my outlining. But when your paint is real thick, it is not going to flow the way that you're going to want it to flow. So I actually prefer to put it a little bit of water and get that loosened up a little bit, get it a little thinner, because I just personally like how my brush flows when it's a little watered down. So you can always try it without water, and if you like your look, great. If you're looking at it and you're like, oh man, I don't know, something's not quite right, it doesn't look good, try adding a little bit of water. Always start out with a little bit, because once you have it all watered down, if you got too much water in it, there's kind of no way to fix it other than to add more paint. But if you're like me in a situation like I am in today, I don't have any paint. So I'm just kind of tracing those outer edges and then following along with those swishes that we've been trying to do. Winnie, I don't know if you could tell, but my corgi is a barker. Hold on one second. Let me let her back outside. I am so sorry, you guys. I have 3 dogs, and they're used to me I work from home, obviously, so they're used to being with me all day. So they like to be outside, but then anytime they hear any kind of noise, they got to take off barking. So I'm going to just finish following along with the outside, and then I'll come back and do my swish. Now, typically I do that swish in one fell swoop. I start at the top and come where and do that way. But I have this turned so that you guys can see it. Traditionally, when I paint, and I'm doing it the way I do it every day, I always have it facing like this so that my brush will flow on these little swishes a lot simpler. Now, you can see that red and that red orange with your shading red, how that contrast looks. So it's really, really good. So now what I want you to do is you're going to take your brush. You don't even need to load anymore. You still have paint on here. And you're going to go on top of your swishes just like that. Now, if you wanted to, you could always do a few more. That's always up to you. So as far as the orange, my orange is done. I'm going to wash out my brush. And now I'm going to do my top. back on. So, I don't have much black, but I have enough to do this for you. I also water down my black. I always water down when I'm outlining. Your brush, like I said, we're trying to get it to flow as far as possible to keep your lines from being choppy. So, you just kind of pick a spot. You see I got a little bit of red on that brush. That's okay. Wipe it off. My dogs are now back in here underneath my chair, hitting my chair, making my arm kind of go all over the place. Alrighty, now my natural hand flow, like I said, it's not feeling as natural at this moment because I'm painting this in a different direction than what I normally do. But that looks good to me. So same concept that I did over my little shading swipes. I'm gonna use my black over the green shading swipes and just kind of give it a little, just a little dash. I did not load more paint in my brush. I only used what I already had in my brush from my outline. You don't want that to look thick. You just want it to be light and wispy. So now I'm gonna get all that excess paint back off my brush and wash it because I am done with black. Now it looks done, right? It looks like a finished product. Well, it never ever is until you do white. White is always the very last step. After you do white, then you are considered done. This to me is honestly the most important part. It's what really is going to bring this to life. So again, I have white. It's already watered down. If you can see that's separated in there, because it's been sitting on the table. Because I put so much water in there, this is separated every day. If I use this right now and I come back in an hour and use it again, I'll have to stir it again because it'll start separating. So I'm just gonna use my brush to mix it. Now if your white is obviously gonna be a lot thicker. So you're gonna take some of that, add some water to it until you get it to be a much, much thinner consistency. Whenever you're doing this with your brush, you should be able to pick it up and see it dripping paint. I don't know if y'all could see that, it's hard to see. But if it's dripping the paint, then you know that it's loose enough, that it's thin enough for you to use it. Now, the same concept that we just did with the black on top of your shading swishes and the orange red on top of your orange shading swishes, it's kind of the same thing, except you're not gonna touch the other colors. You're gonna do it kind of around. So no right or wrong, just wherever your paint brush leads you. I let my brush do the work and I just kind of follow it. Sometimes I don't quite always like the way it looks, but you know, I can go and add in a few more or whatever. So I'm gonna call it done. And this piece is now completely finished as far as your painting goes. I wait for it to dry and then I do a top coat of polyurethane. And then I flip it on the back and you just use any exterior house paint. If you have some laying around from an old project, use whatever random color you have and you can save all of these colors for future projects. Guys, y'all are really driving me nuts. Goodbye, go outside. Sorry about that, guys. I'm gonna try to edit out my dogs being so crazy. So that's done. What do you guys think? Let me know how yours turn out. Please send me photos of your finished projects. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.